introduced His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, Sarah Cocker, and Iman Alhaji. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, seldom one feels not only proud of the friendships that we see around us today, this morning, but also seldom to see us gathering here as Saudis, celebrating a change, a dramatic change. A dramatic change that is brought by our leaders, specifically a younger leader who is leading all the youngsters, and in that matter all the young, imaginative aspirations and goals for what not Saudi Arabia today, but what Saudi Arabia would be in the future. It's the beholding of today's matter to change it and to move it forward to a better future that will be led by this generation and the generations to come. So whatever you see today in Saudi Arabia, whatever you see tomorrow in Saudi Arabia, is not the work of myself or my generation or the generation that just preceded me or the generation that just came after me. I am empowered by a young leader who has the vision, and he is the owner of that vision, Vision 2330. But the empowerment has spread in Saudi Arabia to the many youngsters that you saw in the gallery, and the many youngsters that are working the day and night, delivering not for my future, but for their own future. And I'm proud to say, in Saudi Arabia, it is not the men of Saudi Arabia, but actually it's the women and men of Saudi Arabia that will deliver the
So wonderful to hear those words, and we're so fortunate that we have His Royal Highness with us as well to further talk about our next panel, which is Taking the Lead, Youth Driving Climate Action. We're so excited to open up this panel for a conversation, and of course afterwards, later in the day, we will be doing, after this panel, a Q&A with His Royal Highness, which he's kindly agreed to as well. And we've heard so many wise words over the last day or so, and further wise words today on the circular economy, on the ecosystem, on the joined-up approach that we're going to see as we use technology, and of course all of your brains out there to find innovative solutions for the next steps. So it gives me great pleasure and a great honor to invite to the stage once more His Royal Highness Abdulaziz bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. He is the Minister of Energy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And it also gives me a great pleasure to invite Iman Alhaji. She is the President of Student Sustainability for KAUST of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well, to join us here on the stage. Welcome, Iman.
Thank you.
Welcome, Your Royal Highness.
We're going to push them a little bit because thank you.
So, Your Royal Highness, such a pleasure to have you here with us today, to have this conversation with everyone out here, and of course, Iman here on the stage. If I could start the first question, maybe a little bit of a cheeky one, but Your Royal Highness, if you could write a note to your younger self, what would that note say?
Well, I don't have to write it to my youngest self. First of all, I'm very honored to be with you here today. I realize it's not necessarily, as the French would say, the crème à la crème of Saudi Arabia, but there is a good chunk of sample of the crème à la crème of Saudi Arabia. I owe it to the young people that I work with, and I'm sure you've seen a realization for why I keep saying the young people that I work with, because of what you have seen just right now, an example of young, inspiring, determined, and forceful enough to tell me in many times, we know better, so just get out of our way. So I don't have to write it to my younger self. I do have a young daughter and young twins, and I keep telling them I would not be honest to myself if I don't, in my job, try to create the very future that I'm aspiring to create for my own children. And because of that, I am determined to ensure that every lost opportunity, everything that I could have done in my youth is something that we should not deny the young and the youth today from not doing. And that's why you see almost half of this room is occupied by young ladies. I have to remind myself, I have to remind you that it's Vision 23 that delivered this incubator today.
I'm truly honored to have the opportunity of this intergenerational dialogue with Your Highness Prince Abdulaziz. And my question is, how can youth's input be effectively included in the decision-making process? And what advice would you give young Saudis, in particular women, who want to lead change towards climate justice?
Okay. In general, broadly, if you are interested in recruiting young cadets, that's the word we use at the ministry, at the ecosystem, we call them young cadets. It's like almost like a military school. But in all what I do, I always go for a decision-making process, which is more or less a bottom-up approach. The bottom-up approach enabled younger, new recruits to immediately have the feel that they are part of the decision-making process. As you've seen in the panel, and this is only a good sample of the people, the young people that I work with. Some of them not even had a 1 year in this ministry. But the way we do it is that we have the experienced people spend a lot of time with the young incomers. We make sure that we push them through serious training, serious courses, and then we take them, what I call it, take them live. Life means throw them in the arena, the real world. And the real world means you have to learn and work simultaneously. And you are guided and guarded by the experienced people, which add more confidence to what you are trying to do, which will enable you to have a counsel and an advice. So it is almost a balanced, measured, safe bet on the young, because you are also to have the protection that to avoid their possible mistakes. I've always said, and I continue saying, and I believe there is a tape that keeps spinning for the last 2 years about mistakes and what have you. If we as elderly don't allow and have the stomach and the stamina to enable young joiners to make mistakes, I don't know what we could say to ourselves, because we all did the big mistakes and the small mistakes, and creating that tolerance to enable people to goof, but they can recover, is a must, because this is part of the learning process that people need to go through. I would also add the most important word: trust your judgment when you recruited these young cadets. And if you trust your judgment on recruiting, you should push that envelope and trust them in delivering you what you want from them. And without trust, no one would work with you, because you will be getting into the nitty-gritty details of everything, and you will deny them their ability to exhaust their talents. And if you do, you're not getting the best of those people that are working with you. So, good chunk also has to depend on the notion of ownership. You've heard some of my colleagues, young colleagues, saying, we own it. If you don't own it, you would not feel the need for having that buying in. Owning something delivers you serious buying in. And if anybody who works on something, be it old or young, if he doesn't feel that he owns it, he will not have the buying in. And that's why I keep emphasizing that none of the things, the good things that we would do, will happen without engaging everybody in a bottom-up approach.
Your Royal Highness, thanks for your trust and empowerment. If there would be one word or one thing that you would say to young leaders, world leaders at COP26, and the youths watching the unfolding of their future, what would it be?
Well, we made it easier yesterday, and we will even make it more easier tomorrow when the Crown Prince issue also his second set of initiatives. We cannot reach the world without a balanced view. Again, you've heard from my colleagues a while ago, their aspiration for continuous sustainability of the environment, yet you want to enable this generation and the generations that would come after with the enablers that would enable them to push the envelope when it comes to economic prosperity, economic growth, diversification of the economy, and what have you. And for that to happen, you need the financial resources. There is also the issue of what I call it energy security, which requires the world to be much in tune with the idea that
we need all the resources in the world for us to energize the economies. And because of that, we need to work on the solutions that would mitigate the concern with some of the resources that are in use today, such as coal, gas, and oil. And for that to happen, we have two choices. There are those who advocate getting rid of these things, and there are those whom we belong to, that we should find remedies to mitigate and let the world congregate around the idea of emission reductions as opposed to the idea of getting rid of sources of energy. We accepted the challenge and we created this concept of the circular carbon economy, and we were going to move ahead with it, and we are moving with it, especially now we've got consenting parties as the G20, and also in COP26, hopefully you will see more emphasis on that. We already have partners, we're working, we have the team ourselves. By the way, the team does not only incubate people from the ministry or the ecosystem of energy. No, CCE requires a holistic approach that would include even attending to greening and attending to desertification and what have you.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. And now I'll hand it to Sarah.
Thank you, Iman, and thank you for those amazing questions. I have just one more question before we invite the floor to ask the question, because that's why we're here today, is to listen to the youth and what they have to say. So when I was preparing this question, I asked my daughter. She grew up in the Gulf, she rides her horses across the desert, and I said, is there one thing that you would like to ask? She had a few, but one of them was, is the tech we need to solve this developing as the same rate as the problems we need to solve?
I didn't hear the first one.
She was saying that, is the technology moving at a fast enough rate to solve the problems that we need to solve? Is it moving at the same rate?
You could answer her that I gave you this answer. You know, humanity goes through this issue of which comes first, chicken or the egg. I'm very determined that it's always the chicken. And the chicken would roast the egg. Now, the chicken in our case here is a belief in human ingenuity. Let us remember what was the word 100 years ago. Look at what medicines were created. Look at technology, how it evolved. Look at this and that, how it evolved. So we should start with the old recipe, believing in ourselves and accepting the challenge of creating solutions. Look at what the world did with vaccinations, for example. How challenging it would have been had we not got the right technologies of today. Who could have believed that in a matter of less than a year, vaccinations were created in masses. So I believe the chicken is the will to create the technologies, and the belief that these technologies, if developed, would be the right solution. The other alternative is to deceive the whole world by saying we can get rid of this and this and that, but then you don't have the right solutions, and then you will end up with, in our case, serious energy crisis, or a more serious problem, which is nobody's talking about it, further deprivation of the basic energy requirements for billions. Let us not forget, which is a number that's not my calculus, it's a UN report. 3 billion people in this planet Earth are suffering from energy poverty. 750 million people in this world are denied the access of clean energy for cooking. hundreds of thousands of people die from burning and using biomass. And sometimes they would use it for heating, and they would suffocate and die. Diseases comes out of that. The set of priorities need to be fixed between those who have progressed and are there at the high level of economic prosperity, and those who have not even felt the notion of economic prosperity. So part of the problem that we exist today is that there are those who think of a top-bottom approach, and they are complete denial of what is happening to the ground part. And there are those like us who would like to encompass everybody in a genuine, inclusive way to bring solutions that address all greenhouse gases. All sources of energy should be there, and the mitigators would be there if we can congregate as a word delivering these solutions, technological solution. To name few, in Saudi Arabia we have KAUST, we have KFUPM, we have King Abdulaziz Research Center, and we're working, sustainability program. When we created it, we worked with 50 different international institutions, universities, labs, companies. So, and we have the competence and the capability of integrating these people and integrating the work. So here we are. I hope I provided your daughter with a convincing solution.
She'll be watching it on YouTube, so I'm sure she'll be absolutely delighted with that answer. Thank you very much, Your Royal
I'm willing to carry on the conversation with her if she's... Again, I have a very cynical children, but I guess you should be, because I've only seen, this is an advice, be cynical and question everything. It is your best way to learn. When I was at KFUPM, most of my professors actually tagged me with the name Mr. Y. So I'd really advise you to be Mrs. Y and Mr. Y,
What a fantastic question. And you talked about there, Your Royal Highness, about the grassroots level. That's why we're all here today at the Youth Summit. So I would love actually now to turn the floor over to those voices that are joining us today. And I know it can be a little bit intimidating. We've all been scared once about speaking to people, but we have some people here in the middle that would love to ask you, Your Royal Highness, a question. If you could state your name, and then His Royal Highness can hear who's speaking to him.
Can you allow me just to speak in Arabic? Okay.
Your Royal Highness, we are very much honored, of course, and we are very much entertained and very much happy today. Yesterday, of course, Your Royal Highness, you are the star, the superstar of this initiative, and we are very much pleased because we are now set in a clear-cut vision. My question is to Your Royal Highness is, there are great efforts put in by different entities and institutions for the sustainable development and to protect and maintain the ecosystems. The question is, are such efforts made by or in silos, individually, or by groups? The question is, can such efforts be made under one umbrella, such as, for example, the initiative of Green Saudi or Saudi Green Initiative? First of all, all the initiatives mentioned yesterday and today are all by the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed, who supported us to restructure ourselves in such a way as to be more resilient, more reactive, more responsive, more productive, more helpful. And these initiatives and the upcoming initiatives tomorrow In fact, they are collective initiatives. Different sectors have contributed to making such initiatives diverse sectors based on the nature of the initiative and what it is that needs such initiative to see light. So what was supported, of course, the system of energy did support us. This is the way we put an initiative into action or into play. First of all, if we have something important, we need to see who key partners are ours, even like in the private sector or even the public sector. And normally, we cooperate on certain issues that are relevant. Other than their engagement or involvement, we also empower them and enable them to feel that they co-own this initiative. So, in fact, this is not something new, but again, I don't know for sure exactly if you have something in particular or an institution, NGO. Based on my knowledge, I don't know which initiative, the one that have been so far displayed or introduced by His Royal Highness, and I explain later, of course. I don't know if any entity or institution can play such an active role or responsibilities have not been engaged. We cannot hear you, I'm sorry.
And then we'll move along very quickly because we've got lots of hands there in the right.
I am from King Saud University, Faculty of Science, Botany Department. I didn't ask the question because I do belong to this university, and the university should play such a great role in this initiative. Thank you. This is true, and other, of course, universities.
Excellent. More questions over there. It's a bit of a lucky dip today, so I can't make that decision. The microphones are coming. There's a young lady there in the middle, please.
Just to throw a bomb on the organizers, I'm available. So if you want me to stay more, I will. If they kick me out, it's their problem.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness, and thank you, Iman, and also Sarah, for the great conversation over here. There's a great message that we would like to spread in all over the country. So my question is, let me first introduce myself. I'm Zainab Hamoud, and I'm a graduate student at King Abdullah University. I work also as a graduate student council in my university. My question is, what model do you envision for youth climate activism in the kingdom? Thank you.
We have a model existing. We have Noura here, Mishal, they have a setup. They've been working on climate change issues and sustainability. And if you ask them, and you should ask them and talk to them, because we use them as an independent NGO. It is always good and healthy to have independent voices, but independent voices organized with a setup and tool and kit and a tool that enable them to advocate their own independent opinion, because that is crucial. You know, when we go to climate change negotiation, there are booths and booths of NGOs attending. They represent sometimes a country, and sometimes they represent a global efforts that people congregated because they have similar beliefs and what have you. We at CAPSARC, at King Abdullah Research Center, we're creating now something. I'm not going to give you the name for it until it pops out, but actually it would be a type of an incubator for people who are interested in these subjects. We will put together workshops, we will put panels, we will put material. It will be a type of kind of a membership thing. Learning from our experience when we had CAPSARC, being part of advocacies, groups, NGOs, during when we hosted the G20. So, yes, I believe that there is some shortcomings on the concept of NGOs, but we're trying to elevate that. But again, it's gatherings like this, which would be, I'm sure, an enabler for more of NGOs should pop up.
Next question, please. You can move the microphone. I'm not saying you have to qualify as a student, but the microphone's coming your way. There's some gentlemen here in the corner that would like to ask a question, so I need to look left and right. So one question here, and then we'll go over to the left in just a moment.
Your Royal Highness, thank you very much. So I'm originally from South America, Ecuador, and I'm doing my PhD in KAUST. So I'm foreigner in Saudi Arabia, and I feel so welcome, and I really thank you, and thank you so for Saudi Arabia for this wonderful opportunity. My question is, knowing that Saudi Arabia is a key role player in the energy production, but how do you see the future in terms of sustainable energy, and how young people would give the contribution for this change in the close future? Thank you very much.
Can you repeat that, please? Because the mask is doing it.
Sorry. So the question is, knowing that Saudi Arabia is a key player in the energy production, what would be, or how do you see the future in terms of Saudi Arabia, the role for this global energy transition?
You know, as cynical as I am always, and I will continue to be, I can't change myself being cynical at this age. But I just have to remind people, you know, the world, ever since its inception, has been going through transition. I have yet to see any day since this planet Earth was created that it was not going through transition. To tag it as a transition, it means that what was happening in the past was total stagnation. It's impossible. We wouldn't be here in this room if the whole world was in stagnation. And it's all about now that people have realized that they have to move and get a kick and a jolt and move into this transition. But because the world has been transitioning and will continue transitioning, there is this concept of adaptation. We have to have this built-in belief that we must continue transitioning as the word transition. And if you take a lead in this effort of transitioning, you will be much rewarded. So if you see what is happening to IT, it is simply somebody think that the world will be going this way, and people work hard to create these technologies that enable people to do these things. And whoever win that race benefit the most. So in our case, we're saying the world needs to move to all sorts of energy. And we can be the incubator of doing all of the above. So, and the world needs cleaner gas, cleaner oil, cleaner gasoline, cleaner diesel. But the world also needs renewables, both wind, solar. And the world needs electrification, and the world needs hydrogen. Comes to think about it, and I'm willing to sit with you in a workshop or just to showcase for you that we will be the most competitive country in planet Earth in developing all of the above. So where are we going? we're becoming an energy country. Why? Because we are, and with what we are trying to do and trying to achieve, and with what I see in front of me, hell, we will be competitors. Okay?
So we have one final question. There's a young lady here at the front in the green shayla. If we could pass the microphone along here, if you could put your hand up, if you could say your name and where you're studying, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Judith Fayez, and thank you, Your Royal Highness, for your answers before. So my question is, we talked about young leaders in different fields, and we've talked about how the energy mix will help the evolution of energy in general. But the part is, many of the countries, as you talked before, don't have access to these kind of energies. And with the push of using glass or different alternatives, these countries won't be able to economically fit that criteria and work on that. What can we do from an energy side, sustainable side, to provide these countries with the access to the energy that we have?
Well, you know, I'm chewing my tongue because I want to answer you properly, but I will probably, prudence would dictate that I should ask you to wait until tomorrow when the Crown Prince launch the second set of his initiatives, because there are quite a few goodies in that direction. We as a country have always, and we've been working with the UN and most of these bodies that are tuned in this issue. This is a very serious humane issue. The world cannot be satisfied when there are a set of countries that are growing and prosperous and healthy and what have you, and would like to cocoon themselves with an ecosystem, an environmental ecosystem, protective ecosystem, and they are not mindful of the other set who are, as I said, deprived of their basic needs. And therefore, if the planet Earth ecosystem need to be protected, the well-being of those who are way below in the ladder of sustainability or growth or prosperity, they have to be brought upward. For they then can realize the importance and the prioritization that the upper echelon are focused on.
Well, thank you so much for that question, and thank you so much for that answer.
Where is Richard?
Would you like a...
Short of somebody throwing a bottle on me, can we have another 5 minutes, if you don't mind? Or are you going to kill me now?
I'm sure he'll give you another 5 minutes, Your Royal Highness.
Okay.
Maybe
I thought the bottle was coming.
Not yet. Not yet. I think we had some questions on the left-hand side of the room. I'll let you pick, because I know they've been very patient there.
My name is Muad Al-Dosri. I'm a research engineer from SABIC. And my question is, what is Saudi Arabia objective in terms of energy export? Does the kingdom plan to export energy in the near time run? So this is my question. Thank you very much.
Mark my word and tape it and remind me of it. We are the best and biggest exporter on planet Earth when it comes to oil. Being in SABIC, we are moving our rank in chemicals. And we have an ambitious program to move forward in that ladder when it comes to chemicals. We are utilizing our gas as a fuel of our indigenous uses that would enable us to create the chemicals and also to industrialize ourselves and create our country as a big service hub. We are the holder of the cheapest kilowatt per hour when it comes to renewable, both solar and wind. And we intend to maintain that record with us because we have the enablers. Beautiful flat land and beautiful sun, and we have bought ourselves the most efficient air conditioning system thanks to Kafa'a, our local the Center for Efficiency in Saudi Arabia, and we are also will create that cooling system that would continue bless us with the cool weather and yet does not deprive us of the good sun that allow us to create the power or the electricity that would energize our economy. We are also working on hydrogen, and as I was saying yesterday, we're putting our money where our mouths are. Let's not forget in NEOM today, we have the biggest adventure when it comes to green hydrogen. We have already exported, in case some of you don't know, some ammonia coming from blue hydrogen. And mistakenly, I did mention some numbers yesterday because the whole thing was so, but we intend to produce and export something within the neighborhood of about 4 million tons of hydrogen by 2030. Why? Because green hydrogen is produced through renewable and water. As a holder of the record of renewable, as a country that worked hard for 50 years on desalination, we have created even our own technologies. We are now creating water using electricity instead of fueling it with gas or liquids. So we're moving into that direction. Both renewable and some desalinated water is the ingredients that would allow you to produce green hydrogen. There is nowhere in planet Earth can produce both at a cheap cost than this country. When it comes to blue hydrogen, again, we have a prolific gas base called Jafurah. We're going to use it to energize our economy, and good chunk of that amount of Jafurah gas will be dedicated to generating blue hydrogen. Believe me, we are approaching today, yesterday, and we will tomorrow, asking people, asking countries, such as Japan, such as EU, give us your future demand for us to enable us to start working on them, because we would like to be ahead of everybody in that game, and we would like to be the biggest supplier to hydrogen. I did once say something with an apology. I said, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen, Saudi Arabia is determined to be the energizer of the whole world.
That's a fantastic point. I'm going to allow one more question, if that's all right with
I thought that was the grand finale.
But it has to be from a student, and maybe a young lady. So if you could find me a young lady that's a student in the audience. We have one over here. Yeah.
I really love your determination. I'm going to give you that, whether the organizer agree or not.
No problem.
Go ahead. But I'm full of sympathy for my friend here.
That's fine. We'll get him to have the next question.
Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Nof, an actuarial science student, and my question is, what inspires you, Your Royal Highness?
What
inspires you?
What inspires you?
Do you want my honest opinion or PR opinion? What inspires me is a wife, a daughter, and 2 boys. And if I am honest, I would like everyone in this room and everywhere do that. Because if we have a straight, strong bond with our families, determined to give them what you really like to do to them, to give everybody what you really like for your own family, we're in good shape.
We have a young gentleman in the front here who's been waiting patiently. If you could just wait one moment, pop your hand in the air, and we will bring a microphone to you.
السلام عليكم. أنا ياسر عون من جامعة الملك عبد العزيز.
Is Yasser. My question, I read in this initiative that the percentage of wildlife preserve will be higher and higher. The question is part of the wildlife preserves marine wildlife preserve, and does fishery included? I don't want to speak or answer something about something that I'm not sure of. There are some other people who can speak about relating to desalination, because we work with them closely. But as for fishery and marine preserves, where is Noura Sudairi? Rura?
I think you have a better answer than
أعتقد أن لديها
Can you ask? She has a I am the minister and she has a better answer. Our authority in marine diving. Go ahead.
Yes. ممكن تعيد السؤال?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, if you could repeat the question, please.
Hello.
If you could repeat the question, please, so that she can give you an answer.
أيوة. ما أقدر أردك على الجهة المادية. ولكن نعم حتكون.
I cannot. Yeah, sure. The marine preserves will be part of the great interests, because it is a great part for us when it comes to the carbon capture. So that is why the marine preserve will be part of this. Thank you so much
for that. We have so many questions. I'm thinking that it would be a really good idea to write some of these down. Maybe one more, and then we're going to have the final question on stage. If we go over to the right.
That's a good lesson for everybody. Make sure that you surround yourself with qualified people.
Absolutely. So we'll take the microphone over here for one more question. And then I suggest we all write down these questions, and we will be more than happy to forward them to your office for reflection on after this session, because it's so nice to see you all engaged. If we could get a microphone over here, please. Thank you.
In the name of God, the most gracious Badr al-Harbi from King Abdulaziz University, Environmentology Department. My question is the artificial rainfall connected with the Saudi Green Initiative? I did not get your question. Which one? The artificial rainfall project.
You are
asking me, you are asking such a question that we have nothing to do. This this question has to do with the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture. I'm sorry, my son. Dr. Attas, do you have any idea about this or not? Dr. Attas, can you ask? He used to be the head of the authority. Hello everyone. As for the artificial intelligence, is part of the initiatives of the National Center for Meteorology. It was an initiative of the Authority of Meteorology, and now it is moved to the National Center for Meteorology. So if you want more information, you can communicate with me, so I can direct you to the right people.
So I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut it short, if that's all right.
I have a suggestion. I think I have few of our cadets in the ecosystem here. If I can lean on you, work out an arrangement before the end of the day that you create a type of arrangement where good chunk of, not an email address, no. I want it to be more or less transparent, maybe a WebEx or something, where I could, those of our potential, hopefully, I really would like to encourage you to come and work for the energy sector, specifically the oil ministry and then the rest. So, but for that, I honestly, I would believe if we can create a type of a WebEx additional event where our friends here who would like to carry on asking questions, that we should keep the discussion alive and continuous. So can I lean on the 5, 6 cadets that we have had here and others here to create that and work it out? And they will announce their names, so you could approach them, and they will communicate with you on how to reach them and how to approach them. And I could be for an hour and a half, if you want, going through that further exchange. Okay?
This is wonderful.
Yeah, a really wonderful, elegant solution. Thank you very much. And Iman, you had the last question here with my daughter as well. We were talking about this before we came on. You said that children are asked the most difficult questions. So Iman was listening to my daughter and she said, what will be
not just difficult, but also sometimes embarrassing questions.
This one might be. She said, what will be your next car?
Certainly not electrical. We're producing new diesel, Euro 5, and we are producing. We have hybrid cars. As a Minister of Energy in Saudi Arabia, I have to be faithful to my beliefs. However, the country will be manufacturing electrical car, and again, you know, it's a very safe bet. You have to keep your options open. So as a regulator also, we have now issued a regulation that allows for gas stations to have ability for people to fill their car with electricity. I don't want to tell you what we're going to do with these electrifiers, because, you know, we will make sure probably that somebody get electrified. This way they would not come near these wires. But you know, again, we have to be faithful to our new approach. We have to be encompassing everything and anything. Again, we will be the producer. Again, I feel sorry for people that talks about the demise of Saudi Arabia, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be producing electricity, the cheapest electricity in planet Earth, period.
Well, Your Royal Highness, I would like to end on that very positive note from everything we've heard today. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time to all of us here, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. Please make yourself known, and we'll be delighted to forward those questions and help you arrange that. So meanwhile, a big round of applause for His Royal Highness Abdulaziz bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, Minister of Energy for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thank you so much. And of course to Iman, thank you so much for joining us on the stage. Iman Alhaji, President for the Students of Sustainability. Thank you for your input. So that certainly gave us a lot to think about, and we were so privileged to have that conversation and really get to the grassroots levels of the questions that are being asked in the energy sector at the moment. And as I just mentioned there, we would be absolutely delighted if you would like to contact our team, and of course that from the ministry, they were involved in the first panel. So if you check out the schedule, you'll be able to see their names and they will make themselves known to you, and we would love to have you as part of that conversation. And we are now waiting to introduce our next panel because we've had so many different things to talk about here today. And I'm sure we'll have so many more questions to be answered as well. But our next panel will be Becoming Change Makers, Finding Your Own Way. So we would love you again to have a big round of applause for our moderator, Mishal Saud Al-Shalan, as she welcomes her panelists onto the stage. Welcome, Mishal.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have the very difficult task of coming to speak after His Royal Highness, but hopefully we'll keep you engaged in our very short speaker time and plenty to hear from our youth, as well as the head of Relay with us on the stage today. So the session's titled Becoming Change Makers, Finding Your Way. And I think there's no better way to just jump in straight and get a sense of how did you decide to go down the pathway that you're going in? So maybe we can start with Lujain. Our first speaker is Lujain Al-Kharsani. She's the Senior Strategy and Sustainability Manager of in the Public Investment Fund, working, of course, within Saudi Arabia. So Lujain, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mashail. And I think this is such a great question. And I think that a lot of us face a similar moment. The moment that I have really started taking more green approach into the way I live my life is by saying, where would I put my money in? I have a sum of money, I have access money that I would like to invest in. Am I really gonna put it somewhere that would generate return for me and also be better for the environment? Should I put it in healthcare? Should I put it in energy? Or what is the best place? And myself being a Miss Y and asking all these questions, I came to conclusion that I decide to put my money where it is a place that is green, that is better for the environment and actually helps us having a better life. And my story with coming to this journey, I worked as a senior strategy manager in PIF, but then I echoed my beliefs and my investments, and I talked to my leadership. I have a very supportive leadership with Tim and Badr and from the government overall. And I've voiced this over and said that I would really like to work in more green initiatives. And this is where the turning point happened. And I moved from just being a strategy and a business strategy to actually being a strategy and sustainability manager. And this is amazing because it provides us with the right resources that with the way that I'm working every day, I actually work in something that I'm passionate about. change the world and talk to people like you today, to the youth, and tell you that it's actually possible. My career started 5 years ago. It didn't start 20 years ago. I'm only 25. And now I'm working with a public investment fund, generating a lot of sustainable projects that are actually fun for the youth. So this would be my answer to your question.
Fantastic, and I think a lot more opportunity given the announcement of yesterday of Saudi's commitment to neutrality by 2060. So maybe I'll jump next to Nasreen Nassim. She's the chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, and she joins us representing Sudan. But long journey, I think very little sleep, but we're very keen on hearing your story. So Nasreen, please.
Thank you very much, Bashar, and for my co-panelists. أولاً صباح الخير عليكم جميعاً.
First of all, good morning everyone. I am very happy to be here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and among such a great youth.
أواصل باللغة الإنجليزية.
I speak in English so that you can follow up because Oliver with me.
أنا هعرف بالعربي بعدين نحول إنجليزي. اسمي نسرين الصائم.
Name is Nasreen As-Saim. I am the head of the Youth Council of the UN for Climate Change, representing in Sudan. The group was formed after a UN decision made, Tony Guterres, by, of course, a consultative youth council. I am the only Arab one and the only African in the group. I am the head of the group itself. What is important is in this journey, as Mashayikh said, is that the work for the change and for the environment, be as a Sudanese and across the Arab world, is not just like an option. It is an ethical commitment because the Arab region and Sudan in particular will suffer a lot from the climate change.
And now I will switch to English. So my name is Nasreen As-Saim. I'm the chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. It was formulated by decision of the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres. We are 7 in the group representing different areas of the world, and I'm representing the African continent, but also I'm the only Arabic representative in the group. And I said earlier that doing climate activism or climate advocacy for me is not only an option, but it's a moral obligation. Why moral obligation? Because our community in the MENA region or the Arabic region and Sudan specifically is going to suffer, actually suffering right now very much from the impacts of climate change. And unfortunately, it will only get worse and worse and worse. For that reason specifically, I decided to work on environment and climate change almost 10 years ago. I started in 2012 when I was 16 years old, and in January 2022 it will be full 10 years of climate change and environmental advocacy. And it happened by coincidence because when I was 16, I was a freshman at the university, and the university closed for political reasons, so I had 3 months of nothing to do. So I decided to start my voluntary work in one of the oldest organizations in Sudan, Sudan Youth Organization Sudanese Environment Conservation Society. And there I met very climate activists and climate scientists who actually took me there. And then I participated in my first COP in Paris 2015. And there I started doing the negotiation part. So now I have the hat of the youth activism, but also I have the hat of the climate change negotiator. I negotiated gender and capacity building at COP21, COP22. I negotiated action for climate empowerment at COP23, COP24, and since COP24 also I am currently negotiating technology transfer. I will be also going to COP26 directly from Riyadh, and today I received an invitation letter from the Prime Minister, His Excellency Boris Johnson, to speak in the World Leaders Summit on the 1st of November. So what started as a young underage, actually I was 16, environmental activist in one of the small, it's not small, it's big and old, but I was small at that time. Developed until I reached the point where I can actually deliver a statement in front of more than 100 head of states in Glasgow. And it wasn't easy, but when you determine to do something and then you dedicate time and effort for that, it will be helpful. And I just want to use a small quote, which is, luck always serves the ready people. So if you're ready and you had the good chance and you took it, then this is what we call luck.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. Nisreen, an inspiration, hopefully inspiring others to see from our perspective and vulnerability. We have another youth leader here somewhere, Natalia from KAUST. I don't know if she's still in the room or she followed the minister as well. But she was one of the people who identified the change that's happening in the kingdom already of a temperature range increase of up to 2.4 degrees. That's quite extensive. When we're discussing these changes in the abstract in terms of the median changes globally, these political targets of 2 degrees C, we tend to forget that we are already experiencing change, and more so in our region than anywhere else. So thank you for being a voice for our region in those spaces. So next, I'll jump to Julian Olivier, who's the CEO of Rayleigh International. Rayleigh International is a youth-driven organization that supports a global movement of young people to take action. So we've been speaking a bit more of the local work, the work at the UN level, but explain to us a bit about how did you come about to leading an institution that works on the international level and doing great work in empowering the youth in those regions. So please go over to you.
Great, thank you. And so when I was 17 years old, I took part in an international volunteering program in Hungary. And when I was there, I was really lucky to meet young people from all over the world, from Africa, from Asia, Latin America, Europe, North America, and from the Middle East. And when I went on the program, I was kind of interested in these topics, but I didn't really know a lot about it. And it was actually talking to other people who weren't from my country that I realized that the real importance of trying to take action on these themes. So as a group of us, we got together and we wrote a book called The Children's State of the Planet Handbook, which was trying to provide information for young people and children about what was going on environmentally. This was back in 1992, and this book was taken to the Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And in the early 90s, I similarly was part of UN processes at the Commission of Sustainable Development in New York, representing young people and lobbying for a place for young people to talk at that space. Most of the time, we were ushered into another room. We had, even as happens today, young people have events in other countries, not really in the main event, but we were fighting for young people's voices to be heard. We didn't have all the scientific information back then, and it's frustrating to feel that even back in the 1990s, we knew that there was a significant problem facing our planet, the loss of habitat, the loss of biodiversity. And it's a shame that we have not taken action earlier, because we are running out of time. You know, if you listen to the scientists today, we've only got if we get to 2 degrees, we want to hit 1.5 degrees. That's the best we can do. But every degree that we get to earlier is a life saved, because when you go out and talk to people who are facing the impacts of climate change, this can be their houses removed, their livelihoods destroyed, families being forced to migrate and not being together. The impact is very real for millions and millions of people around the world. And so every effort that we can take is an effort on the right track. And we have to take that. It's not an option for us. So we have to push. And as young people, it's really exciting to hear over yesterday and today the work that young people are driving here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to help other people listen to the reality and push for increased efforts to address climate action, because if we can't do that, all of our work is in vain.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. And I feel like we've come full circle from your early days in working in 1994, trying to push for a voice of youth at a panel like that, equally for a voice of youth within the kingdom with the release and the launch of the net zero commitments, it gives a lot more space for us to operate and hopefully collaborate in the international stage. So maybe to jump from the beginnings, to dig in a bit deeper into the change maker's path. I'll start with my first question to you, Lujain, perhaps about the role that you actually actively play at the PIF. If you could shed a bit more light on that. And I know we did not have the opportunity to hear His Excellency Yasser Rumayyan yesterday about PIF's commitments when it comes to the climate change arena, so if you could also shed a bit of light on some of those commitments.
Sure, of course. And to answer your question, actually, I'm gonna echo His Excellency's words. So, a couple of things. The first thing is that us as Saudi, we're one of the most efficient countries in the world in terms of energy. Secondly, we are prioritizing and actually putting 50% of our investments in renewable energy, and this is a huge commitment. Thirdly, we're going to be the first sovereign wealth fund to issue green bonds, or in Arabic, green sukuk. Additionally, there are already initiatives that are taking place within PIF. So there are projects that have already raised debt in green financing. And this change is very crucial because it starts from a top-down approach. And the key thing for us young people and change makers, I think, to understand what is the change that is happening right now, and to actually be able to contribute by sharing the knowledge and making those investments and making those decisions to come actually to an investment that is more sustainable and spend the day with your family.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer. Then maybe I'll jump to you, Nasreen. I know a lot of the aspects of the complexities of climate change, so there's a difference between environment and action on the climate change front that not a lot of people understand. I believe there's a workshop dedicated later in the day, and I encourage all of you to attend to help illuminate some of those complexities. But let's dig a bit deeper into your role as chair of the Youth Advisory. What has it changed in terms of your perception of complexity of unifying global action? But equally, how has your role allowed you to influence change on the ground in Sudan, the land you love and we love, all of us here in Skindler?
Allah يسلمك. شكرا. Okay, it's a big fat question.
Indeed.
But I will try to digest it. Okay, first of all, our role as a youth advisory group is to play the bridge between the Secretary General and the young people around the world. Our role is exactly to be the young eye of the Secretary General on not only how things is happening around the world, but also how UN itself is doing regarding climate change. We meet the Secretary General every 3 months, and we also send reports for him in this between. So I think our main agenda is to push this flood of young people within the system, the whole system of not only UN, but the whole advocacy for climate change. And how things changed is a big question. First of all, now you at least have one representative of youth in every panel, and this is something we didn't have before. So now they acknowledge the role of young people, and they know that they have to have one young person in every session. Also now people listen to young people because high levels decided to listen to young people. We changed or added or modified the Secretary General's climate strategy several times, not only one time. And we also have meetings with different stakeholders within the UN and also outside the UN to speak about their initiatives, how can we include more young people, how to actually raise the ambition and have more results-oriented. And speaking about the results-oriented, it's so different from a country to a country when we speak about climate change. For example, in Europe country, they are speaking about electric cars, okay? In Sudan, only 30% of population have access to electricity. And the population is 40 million, so only 12 million have access to electricity, and the rest, which is almost 28 million, doesn't have access to electricity at all. So how are we going to charge the electric cars? We have only 18% infrastructure of roads. So even if we got electricity, where are these cars going to drive? We are speaking about climate crises, floods, droughts, people dying, houses destroyed, and it's a total different context from the developed countries. For example, Saudi Arabia and the other OPEC countries and the oil producer countries are speaking about carbon capture, but the whole African continent is only responsible for 3% of the emissions, yet they are the most hit by the climate change. If we took South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria out, it's only 1% of the global emissions coming from Africa. So try to multiply to subtitle 1% over a 51 country, and I think it's 0.0008, something like this. Noticing these different contexts and different resources and different problems in different countries is very, very important. For example, if I'm talking to someone from Maldives, I cannot talk about how hot it is, because Maldives is only, the highest point in Maldives is only 2 meters away from the sea level. So they lose 1 centimeter of Maldives every day. So every day we lose 1 centimeter. I think by 2060 we will not have Maldives anymore. So I encourage you all to visit the small island states, because soon we will not have it. Yep. The Antarctic, they are talking about the melting of the ice, and it's a big problem because these communities, the indigenous knowledge, all of they know is ice-based. Yes. And now taking this ice off them, I don't know if they will have something else to do or not. It's so complex, and every community have their own properties. And we need, when we speak about climate change, we have to actually take care of everyone, because climate change is a global problem.
Agreed, absolutely. And there's a huge opportunity, I think, within the minds in the room and who are tuning into our live stream today, to sort of tap into their innovation, but then change it into action. And that's, I'm a bit alluding to the space of my question to you, Julian, is that there's a theory to the madness of delivering on tangible, concrete action on the ground. Could you talk to us a bit more about that theory of change, and perhaps some of the role that behavioral research could help in nudging behavior at scale, at the scale that we're talking about, on a planetary scale, and not on the scale of the individual, perhaps?
Okay, so over the last 2 years, we've done a global youth consultation with young people, and many young people are worried about the climate emergency and the biodiversity emergency. They're also worried about having a fair world, an inclusive world, and they're also worried about work. What sort of job am I going to have? Because you can't be an activist if you don't have support. You can't do that on your own. And it's not all on young people to resolve this. It's on everybody to resolve this. So what we recognize and what young people are telling us is that they don't always know how to take action, and they don't always know what to do, and they don't always have the connections, and they don't have the funding to be able to make a difference as young people, not as the future, as the now. And that's what young people were asking of us. They were saying, what is it that, we want to take action, but we don't know how. So we've been thinking about the theory of how young people can create change. So young people who need support to be able to have those opportunities. And we talked about some of them today. You can learn about them in education, you can study at university. But I would also ask you to go out and connect with nature, spend some time in a beautiful environment, because that is going to help you inside of yourself. I also would recommend that you spend some time talking to people who are most affected by this problem. I, for one, took a journey as a volunteer, and I took part in an international volunteering program. I got to work alongside people from different parts of the world and lived with them to understand what the issues were. Because if you're not curious, as His Excellency was saying earlier, the question, the why, you have to learn. If you don't know what the problem is, how can you take action? You can sit in offices and imagine, okay, we're going to do this, and this. But if in the real world, that isn't the reality of people, all of your ideas aren't going to work. You have to involve everybody who's affected by the problem in the solution. We can't just be the privileged few acting on behalf of people. We have to be involving everybody in the solution. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you need to get out and speak to people and engage with people and learn. Once you've got to that level, you might be at a position where you're informed enough, you're skilled enough to be able to start what we call contributing or collaborating with others to create change. So we might call the bottom level maybe being youth-centered. So these initiatives where young people are working and have opportunities to input and take part. But that's not the same as being youth-driven, which is where you might be not necessarily setting the agenda, but you might be collaborating on what the solutions are. And then the top level might be as what we call an initiator level, which is really being youth-led, which is where young people are setting the agenda. They are deciding on what the issues are, and they're working with other actors to create the solutions, but based on what young people think that is the case. Yeah. But young people can't go from here to there without a lot of support. Because we were talking earlier, there's a real problem in the way that climate finance works, because it's not reaching young people and in the ways that young people need it to get their initiatives off the ground. It's always on the basis of the private sector or the government or the NGO sector to the exclusion of young people. And that is problematic because, as we discovered earlier, young people are the ones who are going to change the behaviors, change the norms, develop the technology. And unless we can do something to support young people to have that journey in a genuine way, to get those skills, to get those connections, we're going to miss out on the opportunity of this incredible generation of young people. We must do something about this. So do look for those opportunities. They do exist. There aren't enough. There aren't enough opportunities for young people to genuinely create change. And we need to find ways to carve out more space for young people to do that.
So maybe then I'll leave you all with one key takeaway from yourselves to the audience. What's one thing you want them to remember of your presence here on the stage? What's one key message? I'm not going to call you out, so whoever wants to start first, please go ahead.
Can I have two?
Please.
Okay, so I will going to speak about the challenges that we face as young people. We have something called climate change anxiety, which is now young people feel that whatever we do, whatever it's happening now, it's not enough, we will not save the world, and etc. Yeah. This might be a way of being very rational of what's happening right now and what result we want to have. But this doesn't mean that we lose hope. We actually advocate more to actually reach the goals that we want to reach, not lose hope and stop doing things, because we don't have any other option. Me and I'm sure many of you will not just wait and still to die or roast or drown under the water or something like this. So don't lose hope. And also regarding the finance that my colleague here mentioned, I really wish if, for example, the Green Initiative or the Saudi Arabia can have some sort of financing instruments for young people around the world to be able to do their projects and actually advocate more for climate change and environment. It will be very helpful because it's really hard for young people to access finance. It can be run by the embassies, it can be run by the initiative itself. There is hundreds of ways that such an initiative can help young people around the world.
Absolutely, and I think yesterday's message was we're going to lead this transition to neutrality ourselves,
yes.
And we'll be financing it ourselves, but also financing innovation, so that's a great point. Please, Jane, go ahead.
I think from my side is just to be aware of what's the impact that you can make, what is happening around the world, and make actions based on that. This would be my takeaway.
Fantastic. Julian.
Okay, so I think if you want to create change, you also need to think about behaviors. Sometimes it's not easy for us to take action. I know that, for instance, eating lots of food isn't good for me, but I still do it sometimes. I know that there's a problem with the environment, but I don't always take the right decision. And if you want to create genuine change, you need to think about how people's minds work. So we have this thing called EAST. Make things easy, accessible, social, and timely. So if you want people to do the right thing, make it as easy as possible for them to do it, because then they'll choose to do it. But remember to do it at the right time, because otherwise people might not be doing the thing at the right time.
Yes.
So really think about, if you want to create change, think about how people's minds work, rather than just telling them that they have to do something. Think about what's in your brain, and that will help you unlock the secrets to genuine change.
Absolutely. Very great point. So thank you very much for joining me today, and Wish we had more time to chat, but I'll leave it all to my colleagues. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Go ahead.
الله يعطيك العافية.